The phone lit up on the nightstand at 2:17 a.m. and the name on the screen made 15 years collapse into a single heartbeat. Remember when you cried in the bathroom because nobody sat with you at lunch? The text glowed in the dark like poison. Underneath it, a laughing crying emoji and 3 little words that turned my stomach inside out. Guess who's crying now, fatty Evelyn? I was 42 years old, lying beside the man I'd loved since college, and the girl who used to pinch my arms until they bruised in 8th grade gym class had just texted me from his phone. My name is Evelyn Grace Carter, though most folks just call me Eve. I teach 3rd grade at Willow Creek Elementary, the same school where I once hid in the stall praying the bell would ring before anyone noticed the tears. I thought I'd left that girl there, locked behind the metal doors with the smell of bleach and cafeteria tater tots. I thought 15 years, a good marriage, and 20 pounds lost had buried her for good. But some ghosts don't stay dead. Some of them wait until you feel safe, then slip into your husband's bed wearing perfume you bought him for Christmas. Marcus was asleep beside me, breathing slow and even, one arm flung over the extra pillow the way he's done every night for 12 years. The phone was face down again, he always does that when he thinks I'm sleeping, but the message was still burned into my eyes. I didn't scream. I didn't shake him awake. I just lay there in the dark listening to the ceiling fan click on its loose chain and felt every insecure 13-year-old version of myself crawl back into my skin. Because the worst part wasn't that my husband was cheating. The worst part was who he was cheating with. Tiffany Marie Delgado. Homecoming queen. Head cheerleader. The girl who started the rumor that I smelled like onions because my mama packed me leftover collards for lunch. The girl who told the entire bus I stuffed my bra with tissues, then laughed when the boys snapped it in the hallway. The girl whose favorite hobby was making sure I never forgot I was the poor black kid on scholarship in a school full of country club legacies. I hadn't seen her face since graduation. And now she was inside my marriage. I waited until Marcus's breathing deepened, then slipped out of bed like I was 12 again, sneaking past Mama's room so I wouldn't wake her after a double shift. The hallway was cool under my feet. I took his phone into the laundry room, closed the door soft, and turned the lock. Passcode was still our anniversary 0814. Some habits die harder than trust. The messages went back 8 months. Selfies of her in lingerie I would never wear. Voice notes of her moaning his name. And threaded all the way through, like barbed wire wrapped around silk, were the little knives she still knew exactly where to slide. Look at her stretch marks, babe. Bet she turns the lights off. Tell her you're working late again. Fatty Eve won't notice. God, remember when she tried to join cheer and fell on her face? Some things never change. Every word landed like it was 1996 again, and I was hiding in the band room eating lunch alone. I sat on the cold tile floor between the washer and dryer and cried without sound, shoulders shaking, phone clutched so tight my knuckles went pale. I cried for the little girl who used to pray the acne would clear before picture day. I cried for the woman who thought love had finally made her enough. And I cried because part of me, the part one hated, still heard Tiffany's voice in my head saying I told you so. When the tears stopped, something hard settled in their place. I forwarded every message, every photo, every voice note to my own email. Then I deleted the forwards from his sent folder. I put the phone back exactly where it had been, screen down, charging cable curled the same lazy S. I crawled into bed and lay perfectly still until the sun came up and Marcus kissed my forehead and said, "Morning, baby," like any other Thursday. I smiled. I said, "Morning, back." And I started planning. Because Tiffany Delgado had waited 15 years to hurt me again. She just didn't know I wasn't 13 anymore. People always said Marcus and I looked like we belonged together. Same warm brown skin, same easy laugh, same way of finishing each other's sentences after 12 years of marriage. We met senior year at State, me on a full scholarship, him paying his own way working nights at the dining hall. I was the quiet girl in the front row taking color-coded notes. He was the one who slid into the seat beside me with 2 sweet teas and said, "You look like you could use some sugar, Miss Serious." I married him in my mama's backyard under the pecan tree, wearing a simple lace dress I found on clearance and a smile so wide my cheeks hurt for days. Mama cried happy tears and told him, "You take care of my baby, you hear?" He promised he would. And for a long time, I believed he kept that promise every single day. Our life wasn't fancy, but it was ours. We bought the little brick house on Sycamore Lane with the cracked driveway and the creep myrtle that bloomed purple every June. Marcus rose to senior project manager at the construction firm downtown. I taught 3rd grade and came home smelling like crayons and glue sticks. We had 2 babies, Jada, now 10 going on 30, and Micah, 8 with his daddy's dimples and my stubborn streak. Every evening the 4 of us piled on the couch with a big bowl of popcorn and watched whatever cartoon the kids voted for. Marcus would rest his hand on my knee, thumb moving in slow circles the way he'd done since college, and I'd think, this is what safe feels like. Saturdays were for pancakes and laundry and Marcus coaching Micah's soccer team while Jada and I cheered too loud from the sidelines. Sundays we went to Mount Moriah Baptist, same pew 3rd from the back, Mama sitting between the kids passing out peppermints when the sermon got long. After service we'd eat dinner at her place, fried chicken, collards, cornbread soaked in pot liquor, then drive home sleepy and full, windows down, old school R&B on the radio. Marcus still called me baby girl when he kissed me goodnight. Still left little notes in my lunch when he packed the kids, "You're beautiful today, Eve." Still reached for me in the dark like I was the best part of his dream. I never doubted he loved me. Not once. Looking back, the signs were small enough to miss if you weren't looking for them. He started showering as soon as he walked in the door instead of hugging me hello with sawdust still on his shirt. His phone stayed face down on the counter. He'd smile at texts and say just work when I asked who it was. He brought home flowers twice in 1 month, roses, not the grocery store daisies he usually grabbed. I thanked him, put them in water, and felt guilty for the tiny knot in my stomach. I told myself marriages go through seasons. I told myself good men get tired sometimes. I told myself I was being the insecure girl from middle school again, waiting for the joke to be on me. So I prayed harder. I wore the red nightgown he liked. I planned a surprise weekend at the lake for our anniversary coming up. I did everything a good wife does when she feels the ground shifting under her feet but doesn't want to admit it's an earthquake. The kids kept me grounded. Jada with her braids and her endless questions about everything. Micah with his gap-toothed grin and the way he still crawled into our bed when thunderstorms scared him. They were proof that what we had was real. Children don't lie with their hugs. And Marcus, he still came home every night. Still helped with homework. Still kissed me in front of his friends like he was proud to have me on his arm. Whatever was flickering at the edges, I thought love could steady it. I never imagined the person holding the match was someone who already knew exactly where my scars were. Tiffany Delgado had disappeared from my world the day we threw our caps in the air. Last I heard she'd married some real estate guy, moved to Charlotte, had a little boy, got divorced, started selling luxury skincare on Instagram. I didn't follow her. I didn't need to. Some names you just let the wind carry away. I didn't know she'd moved back to town 6 months ago. I didn't know Marcus's firm had taken on the new subdivision out by the highway. I didn't know their first site visit turned into drinks, then dinners, then everything else. I didn't know she'd recognized me in the grocery store one day, watched Marcus put his arm around my waist and kiss my temple while we picked out cereal, and smiled like a cat who just spotted a bird with a broken wing. I didn't know any of it. Not until that phone lit up and 15 years of healing cracked right down the middle. But that night in the laundry room, sitting on cold tile with my dead mama's prayer on my lips and my husband's betrayal in my hand, something shifted inside me. The scared little girl who used to flinch when lockers slammed shut, she stepped aside. And the woman who'd earned every grey hair, every laugh line, every stretch mark birthing 2 miracles, she stood up, wiped her face, and started making a plan. Because Tiffany wanted to play the same game she'd always played. Only this time, I wasn't 13. And I wasn't playing alone. The first real crack came on a Tuesday that smelled like rain. Marcus came home late, said the crew had poured concrete after hours because the forecast was bad. His boots were clean, though. Too clean. I noticed because I was folding Micah's tiny socks on the couch and the silence in the house felt heavier than usual. He kissed the top of my head, quick, distracted, then went straight to the shower. I heard the water running longer than normal. When he came out, he smelled like the new body wash he'd switched to, something expensive with cedar and bergamot instead of the plain Dove we'd used forever. He climbed into bed, scrolled his phone for a minute, then set it face down on the nightstand and was asleep in 5 minutes flat. I lay awake listening to the rain tick against the window and felt the old ache stir, the one that whispered you're not enough. I told it to hush. I was tired. But the next morning his phone buzzed while he was brushing his teeth. I was pouring coffee. The screen lit up on the counter, a single peach emoji from a contact saved as Mark, concrete supply. I smiled at first. Marcus hates peaches, always has. Then I remembered he'd never saved any work contact with an emoji. I didn't touch it. I just watched the screen go dark and felt the knot tighten. Little things kept adding up like loose change in a jar. He started wearing the cologne I bought him only for date nights to regular work days. He'd laugh at his phone in the carpool line while waiting for the kids, then lock it fast when I opened the door. Once I caught him typing with one thumb, smiling soft, and when I asked who it was he said client and changed the subject to Jada's science project. I started making excuses to stay up after he fell asleep. I'd grade papers at the kitchen table, earbuds in, pretending to listen to music while I watched the glow of his phone on the nightstand. Some nights it would light up 3, 4 times after midnight. He never woke up. Or maybe he was pretending to. I hated myself for checking. Hated the way my stomach flipped every time I saw that peach emoji notification. But the hardest part was how gentle he still was with me during the day. He'd pull me into his lap while I cooked, bury his face in my neck, and whisper, "You're my home, Eve." His hands still knew every curve of me. His mouth still said my name like a prayer. That's what made the doubt feel like drowning. The love was still there, warm and familiar, but something cold was moving underneath it. I started keeping a little notebook in my teacher planner, dates, times, excuses. Not because I wanted proof. Because I needed to see if I was losing my mind. Mama always said write it down when your heart won't settle. Paper doesn't lie. April 14th. Came home smelling like vanilla perfume, said it was the new receptionist at the office. April 19th. Phone buzzed 2:11 a.m. Peach emoji, he smiled in his sleep. April 27th. Brought home roses again, said just because, but forgot our grocery list on the fridge. I showed the list to my sister friend Denise at lunch one Saturday. She read it quiet, then closed the planner and looked at me with soft eyes. "Eve, baby, this ain't normal." I laughed it off. "Marriage is hard sometimes. We're fine." She didn't laugh back. The reunion invitation came in May. Willow Creek class of 2011 to 15-year reunion. Saturday, June 24th, Country Club Ballroom. Dressy casual. Bring your memories. I threw it in the trash. Marcus fished it out, smoothed the creases, and said, "We should go. Be good to see everybody." His voice was light, but his fingers lingered on the card a second too long. I watched him and felt ice slide down my spine. Because the reunion committee was co-chaired by none other than Tiffany Marie Delgado, her name in gold script at the bottom like she'd never left. I said yes because I wanted to see his face when I agreed. He smiled too wide. Kissed me too hard. Said, "It'll be fun, baby." That night I took his phone while he snored and found the peach emoji thread. The last message was time-stamped an hour after he'd fallen asleep. "Can't wait to see you in that red dress Saturday. Bet fatty Eve still won't fit into hers." I stared at those words until they blurred. Then I did something I'm not proud of, but desperate women do desperate things. I created a fake Instagram account, generic pretty avatar, no followers, name Peach Supply Co., and messaged her from a burner email linked to it. "Hey girl, saw you're helping with the reunion. Any chance Marcus C.'s wife is on the guest list? Trying to surprise a friend." She answered in less than a minute. "Oh honey, Eve Carter. She's definitely coming. Marcus confirmed for both. Can't wait to see how the years treated her." I closed the laptop, went to the bathroom, and threw up until there was nothing left but bile and rage. The reunion was 3 weeks away. 3 weeks to decide if I was going to smile pretty while the girl who broke me in middle school finished the job in front of the whole town. Or 3 weeks to make sure when that Saturday came, the only person crying in the bathroom would be Tiffany. I chose the second one. But first, I needed proof that would stand up in daylight. So I started gathering, quiet, methodical, the way I planned third-grade field trips. Screenshots. Voice memos when he thought I was asleep. Bank statements showing hotel charges I never saw. I even drove to the job site one afternoon and watched from my car as he laughed with a blonde in yoga pants by his truck, her hand lingering on his arm like it belonged there. I recognized the way she flipped her hair. Some nightmares you never forget. I cried in the school parking lot afterward, windows fogged, radio off, hands shaking so hard I couldn't hold the wheel. Then I wiped my face, fixed my lipstick, and went inside to teach 23rd graders how to write friendly letters. Because that's what grown women do. We hold it together until we don't have to anymore. And my anymore was coming. The night I finally saw her face again, the house was quiet except for the hum of the refrigerator and the soft tick of the hallway clock Mama gave us when we bought the place. Marcus was snoring in the bedroom, worn out from a long day on site. The kids were asleep. I sat at the kitchen table in my old college t-shirt, laptop glowing, a cup of chamomile gone cold hours ago. I'd spent the last 2 weeks becoming someone I didn't recognize, a woman who knew her husband's phone passcode better than her own heartbeat, who could recite his credit card charges like scripture, who had a hidden folder on her computer labeled Tax Docs 2025 that held nothing but screenshots and heartbreak. That night I opened the cloud backup he never logs out of, the one we share for family photos, and there she was. Hundreds of pictures. Some just of her, posed in lingerie on what looked like hotel sheets, duckface selfies in his truck, close-ups of her lips wrapped around a straw with captions like thinking of you. Others of them together, his arm around her waist at some rooftop bar, her head on his shoulder in a booth, one of him kissing her neck while she held the phone for the mirror shot. And threaded through every album, the messages. Thousands of them. I scrolled backward until my eyes burned, until the words blurred into one long scream. She called me Thunder Thighs Eve. He laughed with the crying laughing emoji. She sent him a throwback photo from yearbook me at 13, awkward and chubby in a too-tight dress at the spring dance, standing alone while everyone else paired off. Underneath she wrote, "Remember when nobody would dance with her?" Still true face with tears of joy he replied, "Stop, she's my wife." But then he added the peach emoji. And kept scrolling. I sat there until the sky outside turned lavender, reading every cruel word they'd written about the body that carried his children, the face he kissed every morning, the woman who still warmed his side of the bed while he warmed hers somewhere else. When the sun came up, I closed the laptop, walked to the bathroom, and looked at myself in the mirror. Puffy eyes, grey hairs I usually hide with a rinse, the soft belly I'd learned to love because it meant Jada and Micah were real. I looked at that woman and I said, out loud, voice steady for the first time in weeks, "They don't get to write the ending of this story." Then I did 4 things, calm as Sunday morning. First, I emailed every screenshot, every photo, every message to a new Gmail account only I knew. Second, I printed the worst ones, the ones where she tagged old yearbook photos and mocked my stretch marks, where he laughed along on plain paper, no headings, no explanations. Third, I called Denise and told her everything. She cried, cursed, then said, "Whatever you need, I'm there." Fourth, I RSVP'd yes for 2 to the reunion and bought a red dress that fit like armor. The reunion was 8 days away. I spent them like a woman preparing for battle who still had to make school lunches and smile at parent-teacher night. Marcus noticed the change. Asked if I was okay. I smiled, touched his cheek, and said, "Just excited for the reunion, baby. Gonna be good to see everybody." He swallowed hard and looked away. The night before the reunion, he tried to get out of going. Said he had a headache, maybe we could skip it. I stood in the bathroom doorway in my robe, putting on earrings, and said, "No, honey. We're going. I already bought the dress." He looked at me, then really looked, and I saw fear flicker across his face for the first time. Good. Saturday, June 24th, was hot and sticky, the kind of Georgia evening where the air feels like wet cotton. I curled my hair, painted my lips the red Mama always said was my power color, and slipped into the dress that hugged every curve I used to hide. Marcus wore the navy suit I'd laid out for him. He kept tugging at his tie. We dropped the kids at Mama's. She took one look at my face and squeezed my hand hard. "Whatever happens tonight, you remember who you are, baby girl." I nodded. Couldn't speak. The country club ballroom was strung with fairy lights and old yearbook photos projected on the walls. People laughed and hugged and took selfies under a banner that read Willow Creek Class of 2011, still flying high. I walked in on Marcus's arm like nothing was wrong, smiling at folks I hadn't seen in years, letting them tell me how good I looked, how lucky Marcus was. He held my hand too tight. And then I saw her. Tiffany Delgado, in a white dress cut down to there, blonde hair extensions swinging, standing by the bar with a cluster of former cheerleaders. She spotted us at the same moment. Her smile spread slow, like a cat stretching in sunlight. She started toward us. Marcus's grip went slack. "Eve Carter," she sang, voice syrupy, arms already open for a hug. "Look at you, all grown up." I let her hug me. Felt her cheek press against mine, smelled the vanilla perfume that had been on his clothes for months. Over her shoulder I saw the big projection screen behind the DJ flip to the next yearbook photo. Me at 13, standing alone at that spring dance, eyes down, arms crossed over my stomach. The room went still for half a second. Someone whispered, "Oh, poor Eve." Tiffany pulled back, fake sympathetic pout. "Oh honey, they're showing the old pictures. Remember that dress?" I smiled. Calm. Sweet. Deadly. "Funny you mention dresses," I said, loud enough for the little circle around us to hear. "I've been meaning to thank you for all the fashion advice you've been giving my husband." Her face flickered. Marcus went pale. I reached into my clutch and pulled out the stack of printed messages, folded once, crisp white paper, and held them up between two fingers. "Especially the ones about my stretch marks," I continued, voice steady as Sunday preaching. "Real helpful." The music was still playing, but conversation around us had stopped. Phones came out slow, like people didn't want to miss what came next. Tiffany tried to laugh. "Eve, I don't know what." I unfolded the papers and held the first one up so the nearest group could see, a screenshot of her text calling me thunder thighs, his laughing emoji right underneath. Gasps. Whispers. Marcus finally found his voice. "Eve, baby, let's go outside." "No," I said gently. "We're all friends here. Let's catch up." I turned toward the DJ booth, raised my voice just enough. "Hey DJ, could you kill the music for a second? I've got a little reunion toast." The room went silent. The lights dimmed a little, he thought it was part of the program. I walked to the center of the dance floor, papers in one hand, microphone someone handed me in the other. "You'll remember Tiffany Delgado?" I started, smiling wide. Homecoming queen, head cheerleader, always knew how to make a girl feel special. Laughter, nervous, scattered. Well, 15 years later she's still making me feel real special. Only now she's doing it in my husband's bed. The room inhaled as one. I held up the papers. I brought receipts. I didn't read them all. Didn't need to. I just held up one after another, her mocking my body, him laughing, the hotel confirmations, the peach emojis like flashcards from hell. Tiffany tried to bolt. Two of our old classmates, big linebackers turned sheriffs, stepped in front of the exit, arms crossed. Not because I asked. Because some things are bigger than high school cliques. Marcus stood frozen, mouth open, looking like a man watching his life burn down in real time. When I was done, I laid the papers on the table by the punch bowl, right under the memory lane sign. I'm not here to beg him to stay, I said, voice soft now, almost kind. I'm here to remind everybody what happens when you kick a woman who's already learned how to stand back up. I looked straight at Tiffany. You wanted the old Eve back. The one who cried in bathrooms. Congratulations. You got her for about 5 minutes. But she brought friends this time. I dropped the mic, literally, and walked out. The last thing I heard was someone starting slow clap that turned into thunder. Marcus chased me to the parking lot, calling my name, but I didn't stop until I reached Mama's car. I locked the doors, started the engine, and drove away with the windows down and the radio off, letting the hot night air slap me awake. I didn't cry. Not yet. I was saving that for when I got home and tucked my babies in and told them their daddy made a mistake, but they were still the best thing he ever did. The rest could wait till morning. I didn't go home that night. I drove to Mama's, let myself in with the key under the ceramic frog, and slept in my old room with the faded butterfly border still on the walls. I lay there in the dark listening to the house settle the way it did when I was 16 and heartbroken over some boy who didn't matter. Only this time the boy was a man I'd built a life with, and the heartbreak felt like someone had reached in and scooped my future out with a spoon. Mama found me at dawn curled on the window seat, still in my red dress, mascara streaked like war paint. She didn't ask questions. She just wrapped me in the afghan she'd crocheted when I was pregnant with Jada and held me while I finally cried ugly, shaking sobs that hurt my ribs and left me empty. When it was over, she wiped my face with the hem of her housecoat and said, "Now we figure out what comes next, baby girl. But first, coffee." We sat at her kitchen table while the sun came up golden through the pecan trees, and I told her everything. She listened quiet, refilling my cup when it got low, nodding slow the way she used to when I came home with a bad report card and needed to know the world wasn't ending. When I finished, she reached across and covered my hand with hers, work-worn, warm, steady. "You did right last night," she said. "Proud don't even cover it. But proud don't pay the bills or raise your babies. So what do you need?" I needed 3 things. 1. Time to breathe. 2. Proof that couldn't be explained away. 3. A way to make sure Tiffany felt every inch of what she'd done without me ever raising my voice again. Mama nodded once. Then we start with number 2. She called her cousin Loretta, who works for the phone company. By noon I had itemized call logs showing 4000 plus minutes between Marcus and Peach Supply Co. in the last 6 months. Loretta's sister-in-law at the bank pulled the joint account transactions, hotels in Charlotte, lingerie boutiques, a jewelry store charge for a diamond tennis bracelet I never saw. I sat on Mama's couch with a legal pad and made 2 columns, what I knew for sure. What I still needed. By sundown the knew for sure side was long enough to choke on. Marcus blew up my phoned texts, calls, voicemails shaking with tears. "Eve, please come home. I'm so sorry. It didn't mean anything. I'll end it tonight, I swear." I didn't answer. I turned the ringer off and let Mama cook me neck bones and rice while Denise came over with wine and righteous fury. We didn't drink the wine. We made a plan instead. Step 1. Separate finances Monday morning. Step 2. Change the locks while he was at work. Step 3. Decide what to do about the reunion fallout. Because the reunion had exploded exactly the way I knew it would. By Sunday night, the video, somebody's phone footage of me reading those messages, was all over Facebook. Not just our class group. The whole town. People I hadn't spoken to since graduation were messaging me. "You okay, Eve? That was gangster. Praying for you, sis." Tiffany's Instagram went private, then disappeared. Her business page, some skincare thing, got flooded with one-star reviews calling her a homewrecker. Old classmates who'd stayed quiet in school were suddenly loud in my defense. Marcus showed up at Mama's Monday evening with flowers and red eyes, begging through the screen door. Mama stood behind me like a sentinel. "I need to see my kids," he said. "They're at Denise's," I told him. "And you'll see them when I'm ready. Not before." He started crying on the porch. Real tears. The kind that come from the gut. "Eve, I messed up. I know what I did. She made me feel young again, like I still mattered. I was stupid." I looked at him, really looked, and felt nothing but tired. "You didn't just cheat, Marcus. You let her laugh at me with you. You let her use every hurt she ever gave me when I was a child. That's not a mistake. That's a choice you made every day for 8 months." He had no answer for that. I closed the door soft. Didn't slam it. Slamming would have been too easy. The next week I moved like a woman with a purpose. I filed for legal separation, quiet, no fault, just to protect the house and the kids. I opened my own bank account. I sat Jada and Micah down with chicken nuggets and apple slices and told them Mommy and Daddy were having grown-up problems and Daddy would be staying somewhere else for a while, but he loved them bigger than the sky. Jada cried. Micah asked if we were getting divorced like Elsa's parents in Frozen. I held them until they fell asleep against me and promised nobody was disappearing. And I started writing letters. Not angry ones. Calm ones. Handwritten on my good stationery, the kind with the little gold border I save for thank you notes. One to every person who'd been in that ballroom and seen the truth. One to every mutual friend Marcus and I shared. One to Tiffany's ex-husband. Somebody found his email, with just the screenshots of her bragging about finally getting even with Fatty Eve. I didn't sign my name. I didn't need to. I mailed them from 3 different post offices, no return address. Then I waited. Tiffany's world started crumbling the way sandcastles do when the tide remembers who it is. Her skincare team quit. Her new boyfriend, some doctor she'd been flaunting, dumped her publicly on his story. Old classmates who'd stayed neutral suddenly remembered every cruel thing she'd ever done and weren't shy about saying it in the comments of her last public post. Marcus got called into HR. Turns out the company has a strict fraternization policy, and Tiffany had been logging visitor badges under fake names. He kept his job barely, but the partners looked at him different now. He moved into a 1-bedroom off the highway and started therapy twice a week. I didn't gloat. I just watched it happen the way you watch rain finally come after a long drought. One night Denise and I sat on my couch with peach cobbler, because irony tastes sweet, and she asked, "You good, sis?" I thought about it. Really thought. "I'm not happy," I said. "But I'm free. And that's something." She raised her spoon in salute. "To freedom, then." We clinked like it was champagne. The divorce papers came in August. I signed them without shaking. Marcus signed too. No fight over custody, he knew better. No fight over the house. He just asked if he could keep the photo of us from our first Christmas married. I told him yes. Some hurts you don't need to carry forever. But some consequences people have to live with. And Tiffany. Last I heard she moved back to Charlotte, changed her last name on social media, and started going by Tiffy Marie. The internet never forgets, though. Every time she tries to sell something new, the old screenshots float back up like ghosts that never learned to stay dead. I hope one day she learns what I did. You can't build a life on somebody else's pain and expect it to stand. But that's her lesson now. Mine was already learned. By the time September rolled in, the air had turned crisp enough to carry wood smoke and football sounds on Friday nights, and Willow Creek had done what small southern towns do best, it closed ranks. Not around Marcus. Not around Tiffany. Around me and my babies. It started quiet. Sister May at church slipped an extra 20 in the offering plate for whatever you'll need. The principal moved my classroom to the newer wing without me asking. Micah's soccer coach, big teddy bear man named Coach Ray, started picking him up for practice when Marcus couldn't. Jada's dance teacher waived the recital fee and told her, "You just keep shining, baby." Nobody said it out loud, but everybody knew. And they chose. The first time I truly felt it was the Monday after the papers were signed. I walked into the teacher's lounge for coffee and the room went still for half a second, the way it does when people have been talking about you and don't want you to know. Then LaTonya, the PE coach who graduated 2 years ahead of Tiffany, stood up and hugged me so hard my feet left the floor. "We got you, Miss Eve," she whispered. "Always did. Just took us too long to say it back then." I cried into her shoulder while the coffee burned. That afternoon, someone left a casserole on my porch with a note in perfect teacher handwriting. "Feed those babies. You don't cook tonight." A friend who remembers the spring dance picture. I never found out who wrote it. Marcus felt the shift too. He told me later that grown men he'd known since Little League stopped speaking when he walked into the barber shop. The partners at work moved his office from the corner to the back hallway for restructuring. His mama, Miss Lorraine, who used to call me daughter, stopped answering his Sunday calls. One Saturday he showed up for Micah's game in his old team hoodie. The other dads formed a wall without even meaning to. Coach Ray walked straight past him to hand me a folding chair like Marcus was invisible. Marcus sat alone on the bleachers, head down, watching his son score a goal and run to my arms instead of his. He cried in the parking lot afterward. I let him. Then I buckled the kids in the car and drove away. Tiffany's fall was louder, messier, and entirely public. Her mama still lived in the same big house off the golf course. One Sunday after church, Mrs. Delgado was pulling out of the parking lot in her white Cadillac when 3 former cheerleaders, now mamas themselves, stood in front of the car holding printed screenshots like protest signs. They didn't yell. They just stood there until she rolled the window down and started crying. The whole congregation saw it. Somebody started a private Facebook group called Willow Creek Truth and Tea. Within a week it had 800 members and a pinned post with every message I'd ever mailed out, plus a few more people had saved from the reunion. The comments weren't cruel, they were surgical. I always knew she was mean, but this is next level. My daughter came home crying in 7th grade because of her. Never again. Some people peak in high school and spend the rest of their life trying to claw their way back there. Tiffany tried damage control. Posted a tearful video about forgiving toxic people and moving forward in grace. The comments turned it into a roast. Someone stitched it with the old yearbook photo of me at the dance and wrote, "Grace would have been leaving that child alone in 1996. Her business collapsed. The skincare company dropped her as a rep. Her new apartment listing in Charlotte got flagged so many times the landlord took it down. Last I heard she was living with her cousin in Atlanta and working retail under her middle name. I never celebrated any of it. I just watched the town do what it should have done when we were 13, protect one of its own. The hardest moment came in October. Jada had a father-daughter dance at school. Marcus asked if he could take her. I sat her down the night before and let her choose. She played with the hem of her dress, eyes on the floor, then looked up at me with my mama's eyes and said, "I want Daddy to take me, but only if you come too. I don't want you to be alone." I cried in the bathroom so she wouldn't hear. The night of the dance, I sat in the parking lot in my car and watched through the gym windows as Marcus spun her under the disco ball, both of them laughing like nothing had changed. When it was over, he walked her to the car, buckled her in, and stood there in the cold with his hands in his pockets. "Thank you, Eve," he said, voice rough. I nodded. She needed to see her daddy still knows how to show up. He started to say something else, but I rolled the window up soft and drove away. Some bridges you don't burn. You just stop crossing. By Christmas, the consequences had settled like dust after a storm. Marcus moved into a decent apartment, started paying support on time, showed up for every game and recital without me having to ask. He looked thinner, quieter, like a man who'd finally heard the echo of his own choices. Tiffany disappeared from every platform that would have her. Somebody said she got engaged again, to a man twice her age who doesn't use social media. I hope he treats her kind. I hope she learns how to be kind back. And me. I kept teaching. Kept braiding Jada's hair on Sunday nights. Kept letting Micah fall asleep on my chest during movie nights. Kept going to therapy every Thursday at 4. The town kept loving us out loud. And one Sunday in November, Sister May stood up during testimony time and said, "I just want to thank God for showing us what real strength looks like." Some folks thought they buried that child years ago. But she rose up with receipts and red lipstick and reminded us all who she is. The church said amen so loud the windows rattled. I sat in our pew, third from the back, holding my baby's hands, and for the first time in a long time I didn't feel like the girl in the spring dance picture. I felt like the woman who'd finally learned how to dance anyway. Spring came early that year, the kind of soft Georgia spring that makes you forgive winter for ever existing. The creep myrtles bloomed purple along Sycamore Lane, and every morning the birds woke me before the alarm, singing like they knew something I was just starting to believe, that surviving is not the same as dying slow. I turned 43 in April. Mama and Denise threw me a little party in the backyard, just string lights, store-bought cake, and the people who'd carried me when I couldn't walk. Jada and Micah made a banner in glitter glue that said "World's Best Mom," even when she's sad. I hung it over the kitchen window and left it there until the sun faded the letters. Marcus came to the party. He stood at the edge of the yard in a new shirt that still had the creases, holding a gift bag like he wasn't sure he was allowed inside the gate. The kids ran to him, hugged his legs, dragged him to the cake table. I let them. I even cut him a slice and handed it over without a word. We weren't friends again, not yet, maybe not ever, but we were something new. Two people learning how to love the same children without living in the same house. He gave me a small box. Inside was the gold locket I'd lost years ago on a church picnic. He'd had it cleaned and added a new picture, Jada and Micah on the first day of school this year, grinning gap-toothed and proud. "I found it in my work truck," he said quiet. "Figured it belonged back with you." I fastened it around my neck and felt the weight settle right over my heart where it was supposed to be. "Thank you," I told him. And I meant it. That summer I did 3 things that changed everything. First, I started running. Not far, just to the end of the block and back at first, lungs burning, legs shaking. Then to the high school track where nobody was watching. By July I could do 3 miles without stopping, headphones in, gospel remix in my ears, sweat washing salt into wounds that were finally closing. Second, I said yes to coffee with Derek, Coach Ray's little brother, the quiet one who'd been bringing Micah home from practice and always asked how my day was like he actually wanted to know. He never pushed, never asked about the divorce papers, just showed up with sweet tea and good conversation until one Saturday he asked if he could take me to dinner. I said yes before fear could talk me out of it. Third, I forgave. Not all at once. Not pretty. Some days it was a choice I had to make fresh with my coffee. But I started speaking Marcus's name without tasting metal. I let the kids have sleepovers at his new place without checking the clock every 5 minutes. I stopped flinching when old songs came on the radio that used to be ours. Forgiveness didn't mean forgetting. It meant I wasn't renting them space in my peace anymore. The biggest healing came from the children. Jada started writing me letters, folded notebook paper slipped under my bedroom door. "Dear Mommy, thank you for still smiling even when you're tired. I love you bigger than the moon. Love, your big girl Jada." Micah drew pictures, stick figure families where sometimes Daddy was in the same house and sometimes he wasn't, but everybody was always holding hands. I kept everyone in a showbox on the top shelf of my closet. On the hard nights I took them down and read until my heart unclenched. By fall, the house felt different. I painted the bedroom a soft sage green, no more beige walls holding memories I didn't want to wake up to. I bought new curtains that let the light in instead of keeping it out. I turned Marcus's old study into a reading nook with a comfy chair and a lamp that made everything golden. Derek started coming over on Sunday afternoons. He'd grill chicken while the kids played basketball in the driveway, and would eat on the porch talking about everything and nothing. He never spent the night, not yet. We were taking the slow road, the one with stop signs and speed limits, because I'd learned fast ain't always safe. One Sunday in October, Marcus came to pick the kids up for his weekend. Derek was flipping burgers, the kids were chasing fireflies. Marcus stood by his truck watching for a minute, then walked over and held out his hand. Derek shook it without hesitation. "Take care of them," Marcus said. Simple. Real. "I will," Derek answered. And just like that, two men who loved the same woman in different seasons found a way to stand in the same yard without drawing blood. That night after the kids left, Derek and I sat on the porch swing sharing a blanket and a glass of wine. The air smelled like burning leaves and possibility. "You ever think you'd be here?" he asked. I thought about 13-year-old Eve hiding in bathroom stalls. About 38-year-old Eve reading betrayal texts in the dark. About 43-year-old Eve rocking on her own porch with a man who looked at her like she was sunrise. "No," I said, smiling into the dark. "But I'm glad I am." He kissed my temple, soft, like a promise he intended to keep. Winter came gentle. We did Christmas at my house, Marcus too. The kids wanted both their daddies under the same tree, and for once I didn't fight it. We opened presents, ate too much, took 100 pictures. Marcus left before bedtime with a quiet Merry Christmas, Eve that didn't ask for anything back. I stood at the door watching his taillights disappear and felt peace. Not the loud kind. The quiet kind that sneaks up on you when you realize the storm is over and you're still standing. I still teach 3rd grade. Still braid hair and check homework and dance in the kitchen to Old Mary J. while the macaroni boils. Still run every morning, 5 miles now, easy. Still wear Mama's locket every day. And every year on the anniversary of the reunion, I get a text from an unknown number. Just a single peach emoji with the eyes scratched out. I never answer. I just smile, delete it, and keep running. Because some ghosts try to come back. But I don't open the door for them anymore. The house on Sycamore Lane is mine now, paid off with the settlement and a whole lot of grace. The kids have 2 homes and 1 heart that belongs to both their parents. Derek has a drawer in my dresser and a toothbrush in the bathroom, and we're talking about rings that don't come with old hurts attached. And me. I'm not the girl from the spring dance picture anymore. I'm not even the woman who stood in that ballroom with receipts in her hand. I'm the woman who learned that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is let the past burn so you can warm your hands on a new fire. And on quiet nights when the kids are asleep and the porch light is on and Derek's arm is around me while we watch the stars come out one by one, I whisper thank you. To God. To Mama. To every person who handed me a casserole or a prayer or a shoulder when I thought I'd never stand again. And sometimes, only sometimes, to the girl I used to be, who took every punch and still grew up kind. Because she's the reason I know how to love without shrinking. And she's the reason I'll never let anyone make me small again. If you're still here with me, thank you. Thank you for walking through the dark hallway of that 2 a.m. text with me, for sitting in the car outside the gym while my baby danced with her daddy, for staying when the receipts hit the table and the whole room went still. I know these stories ask a lot of your heart. They ask you to remember your own hurts, the ones you thought you'd buried deep enough to forget. But you stayed, and that means more than you'll ever know. I've had so many of you write me after my other stories, some with tears still wet on your cheeks, some angry enough to spit fire, some just needing to hear another woman say, yes, that happened to me too. And every single time, I think of Mama on her knees by the bed praying out loud so I'd know I wasn't alone in the dark. So let me say it plain. You are not the names they called you when you were too small to fight back. You are not the punchline they made of your pain. You are not the girl hiding in the bathroom stall praying the bell would ring before the tears came. You are the woman who stood up when her legs were shaking, who gathered every sharp thing they threw and built a door they can't walk through anymore. Some of you asked me, Miss Eve, was the reunion worth it? All those people staring, all those phones out, did it heal anything? Sugar, healing doesn't always feel soft. Sometimes it feels like standing in the middle of a fire you didn't start and refusing to flinch while it burns everything that isn't you. But yes, it was worth it. Not because they lost, though they did. Because I found out who I was when nobody was left to tell me. And because a whole town of people who stayed quiet when I was 13 finally got loud when I was 42. That mattered. That healed something too. Some of you asked about Marcus. We're gentle with each other now. We sit side by side at parent-teacher nights and cheer the same at soccer games. We trade the kids on Fridays with a hug and a drive safe. The love didn't die, it just changed shape. It's the love of two people who made miracles together and learned too late that miracles don't make you bulletproof. We're okay. The children are okay. That's enough. Some of you asked about Tiffany. I don't know where she is tonight, and that's the truth. I don't look anymore. I pray sometimes, quick, quiet prayers, that wherever she is, she's learning how to be kind when nobody's watching. That's between her and the God who still loves her mean self. I released her name from my mouth a long time ago. And some of you, the ones whose messages make me cry in the grocery store, asked the hardest question of all. Miss Eve, how did you forgive? I didn't start with them. I started with me. I forgave 13-year-old Eve for believing she was the things they said. I forgave grown Eve for missing the signs because she wanted to feel safe. I forgave my body for every stretch mark they laughed at, because those marks are the map of where my babies grew. And when there was room in my heart that wasn't full of shame anymore, a little grace trickled in for the people who hurt me. Forgiveness didn't make what they did right. It just stopped letting what they did keep me wrong. So if you're sitting there tonight with an old hurt wearing a new face, if somebody reached into your safe place and tried to steal your peace, if you're wondering whether speaking up will cost more than staying quiet, listen to a third-grade teacher who finally learned her own worth. You are allowed to protect your heart. You are allowed to say, not again. You are allowed to stand in the middle of the ballroom, red dress and receipts and all, and remind the world who you became when they weren't looking. And you do not have to do it loud. Sometimes the strongest thing a woman can do is stay calm, gather her evidence, and let the truth speak for itself. 15 years ago I was the girl nobody chose to dance with. Today I dance in my kitchen with my babies, with Derek humming off-key beside me, with the windows open and the music loud enough for the neighbors to hear. That's the revenge I kept. That's the healing I chose. So I'm going to ask you the question I always ask when we reach this part of the porch. If this had been your marriage, if this had been your childhood bully laughing in your bed, if this had been your story, would you have done what I did? Would you have stayed quiet to keep the peace? Or would you have chosen truth, even when it cost you every pretty lie you'd been living? There's no wrong answer, darling. There's only the answer that lets you look in the mirror and still recognize the woman staring back. Whatever you choose, choose it knowing you are stronger than the moment that tried to break you. And you are never, ever as alone as the dark wants you to believe. If you're carrying something heavy tonight, leave it here on this swing with me. I've got room, sweet tea in the fridge, and a heart that's learned how to hold somebody else's hurt without adding it to my own. We'll sit a while. We'll let the crickets preach. And when you're ready, we'll take the next right step together. Until the next story, take care of your heart, and keep dancing, even if nobody else sees. And if nobody told you today, I'm proud of you for still being soft after everything that tried to make you hard. Now tell me, sugar, what would you have done? I'll be right here in the comments, reading every word. Much love from the porch swing, Evelyn Grace.